Okay, and welcome to a new episode of All Things Xbox podcast. Now, Logan should be joining us in a minute because, you know, things happen. It's been an interesting week for gaming news, and what can I say? A lot of stuff broke today, which we're obviously going to be talking about. Some bad, some good, but the AAA gaming industry is a mess. It's a mess. The gaming industry isn't like what it used to be, you know. Um, it's a multifaceted issue, which we'll talk about later. But
Hey, how's it going?
okay, Logan, good to hear you. Yeah, I had to set the thing away already. How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Sorry, I just I fell asleep on the couch and then I woke up. I'm like, oh crap, it's time. So I got here.
Yeah, that's fine. You know what the funny thing is? I never used to understand how people would like have naps or like, how people eat something and then they go really tired. I never really understood how people got tired after like eating and like people needing naps. And then I want to say about 8 months ago, something must have clicked in my brain. And now if I eat like a sandwich, I need like a 2 hour nap. like,
Yeah, I feel you, man.
don't know where that came from, but it is what it is. Before we get into all the news, which there's a lot of topics, what have you been playing this week, Logan?
Oh, I've been playing the new Brotato expansion, Terrors of the Abyss, which adds like a whole bunch of aquatic themed enemies and gear and characters and weapons to the game. And for those who aren't familiar, Brotato is basically like Vampire Survivors, but a little different. To where you don't stack progress like you do with that one, and but you do unlock new characters and weapons that you can use per run. And so in this expansion, like they added like a harpoon gun, like an anchor, a trident, and then some of the characters are like a diver with a scuba gun, and a druid, a vampire, like all kinds of crazy stuff. I've been playing that. I've been playing Madison, which is from Perp Games, and man, that game is terrifying. You you play as this kid who uh, got for his birthday a camera, and turns out that camera is inhabited by a very angry being from a serial killer thing gone wrong. So you have to go around your house and use this camera and do stuff to try to dehaunt the camera. And it's like Visage and PT, and it is really spooky stuff, and highly recommend it. Been playing that, and Phasmophobia just launched today. Hallelujah, it's finally on the platform. Gonna play that tonight. And also launched today was Clock Tower Rewind, a remaster from Way Forward of an early 90s Japanese horror game that was a precursor to Resident Evil and stuff like that over there. It was an old Capcom title nobody thought would come over, and they were given the okay, and so they remastered it. And yeah, I'm excited to play that. How about you, man? You still hanging with those blue people?
There is a new expansion dropping next month. Avatar: Frontiers of Pandora. I honestly feel like I'm going to be playing that game for like another year. It is. It's a big game. Like you have this like vertical forest, and it's just so good. Um, I've actually been playing a lot of Fallout as well. I'm obsessed with Fallout 4 at the minute. I just bought the season pass, so I also have the expansions to go through. Good times. And for people that don't know, the season pass in the Game of the Year edition is cheaper than the season pass by itself. So if people want to get the season pass for Fallout 4, just buy the Game of the Year edition, and then you get to own the game for life, and you get it cheaper. I think it's like £4 cheaper, and you get the game. So I don't know why these places do these sales, but it works because it got me on board. Um, I've been playing Call of Duty Black Ops. Now, the Black Ops stuff I'm going to save for later in the show because I have a lot to say on Black Ops. Because it's, oh my god, so good. I've got gameplay going at the minute, but a lot of good things to say about Black Ops. Some surprising things because this game has surprised me in many ways I didn't expect. I've also been playing a game for review, which was provided to me by Keymailer. Now, I don't want to butcher the name, and there's been footage throughout the podcast so far. It's called Nico Derico, The Magical World. Now, this is a game that is very much inspired by Crash Bandicoot and Donkey Kong Country. It has 2D sections where it's literally like Donkey Kong Country, and 3D sections where it is literally like Crash Bandicoot in the best possible way. So if people have been looking for something that's kind of like Crash Bandicoot or kind of like Donkey Kong Country that's on Xbox, this is definitely highly recommended. It's got big boss battles, there's action set pieces before and after boss fights, there's underwater segments that are very much reminiscent of Crash Bandicoot 3, which I used to love that stuff back in the day. But if people are really looking for like a fun platformer that does offer some challenge, that's definitely it. It also offers many collectibles throughout each level. So again, much like Crash Bandicoot, there's crystals, there's letters, there's different orbs you can pick up through each level, and you can spend these orbs on items which you can unlock in a quote-unquote like virtual museum. It's a really cool game, and not many people have been talking about it, which surprised me because platformers have been a big topic this year, and it's arguably one of the best ones I've played this year.
What was the name again? It escaped me. There was
Yeah,
a noise. So
it's hard to. It's weirdly spelled. So it's called Nicoderico, The Magical World. That's spelled Nicoderiko, The Magical World.
Okay,
And it's
I will
really
add
good.
that to my list.
Yeah, I mean, I know you like platformers and, Crash Bandicoot and all that stuff. And I don't want, excuse me, I don't want to call it a ripoff because it's not. But you can tell the developers were fans of Crash Bandicoot and Donkey Kong Country. So when you're playing the 3D levels, you're literally running away from the camera, like in Crash Bandicoot, or towards the camera. It's very much like that. I wouldn't call it a short game. I think it's a decent length. I'd say it's about the length of Crash Bandicoot 2. But there's plenty of boss battles. All of them are very different. But if you're on Xbox and you're looking for something that's slightly like Crash Bandicoot, it has great performance, I must say. Locked 60, no dips at all. Excellent platforming. And even the underwater segments are fun, which, for me, it's usually a big gripe. I usually hate underwater segments in video games. So yeah, I highly recommend that game, especially if you're in the mood for a platformer. And what else have I been playing? I'm going to save the Black Ops stuff for later because I'm just shockingly surprised by that game. But let's get into all the topics because we've been talking for a while. So, a bunch of new games got announced and new release dates and release windows, so we'll go over some of these. So, The Thing Remastered finally got its release window of 2024. So, there's 2 months left in the year. I will be covering this game shortly. Hint, hint. Logan, I know you've been looking forward to this, and it's actually coming this year.
I'm sorry, I completely zoned out again. What was the title?
The Thing Remastered finally got a release window.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, there was somebody in the kitchen, and yeah, I can't wait for the Thing Remastered. It looks incredible. I love Night Dive. They gave an update at the indie showcase horror thing, and which is really cool production, by the way. Shout out to whoever does it, because like they designed it like with a whole bunch of like 90s aesthetic and like almost like N64 type graphics. Like they show off this video, and like you go into the spooky house, you go down into the basement, and then there's like posters and artwork referencing games and studios, and then they grab a VCR tape and they put it in the VHS, and they play it, and it started all the trailers and stuff. So bravo to whoever did production on that. It was really, really good. And yeah, the thing remastered looks awesome. Like they said basically that they wanted to take it from a original Xbox PS2 game to like a PS3 or, 360 type leap. So, and that's actually a pretty big jump considering what OG Xbox and PS2 look like. And so far, it looks like they've completely nailed it, and I cannot wait for it. It's coming soon.
Yeah, so I actually have a bunch of features wrote down, and it's a huge upgrade. So it's got 4K at 120 frames per second. So at the same time, no mods. The game's sorry, the game consists of 20 frightening levels. They've advanced the trust and fear system in the game. So in the game, you don't know who's infected or whatever. Looks like they've made that even better. The new game has dynamic lighting, which will really help in a horror shooter like that. It's got enhanced textures, depth of field, new quality of life features. They didn't go into detail about that just yet, but if it's anything like their past games, I think it's going to be things like auto saves and difficulty levels, and many graphical improvements. I'm all over the place today. Whenever the times go back in the UK, my brain turns into scrambled eggs. It just
It's okay, man. I've I've been like a freaking like dog seeing squirrels today, I guess. So I guess we're both just off.
Yeah, it'll get better. But yeah. Anyway, the Thing Remastered. I never got the chance to play this back in the day, so I'm very much looking forward to this. Night Dive have proven time and time again they bloody know what they're doing. They're probably one of the best remaster studios in the entire business. I don't know how they get out so many games a year. I think this year they've got now five games, including what the System Shock remake. So they clearly know what they're doing. They're an impressive studio. I think good things are going to come from them, and I swear to God, I'm going to port beg the Riddick games to get remastered at every opportunity, because if anyone's going to do them, it better be them. you know. Um, but yeah, the thing, I never got the chance to play this back in the day, because unfortunately, where I live, uh, our game store back in the day had the most terrible, awful collection, like of selection of games back then. If you wanted a sports game or racing game, congratulations, this store had pretty much everything you could imagine. But if you wanted something that wasn't a racing game, you're out of luck. So annoying. So I love the fact that a lot of these games are coming back, because again, a lot of us missed out on them. Speaking of older games coming back, another game finally got its release window, and that is Croc, The Legend of Gobbos. Now, this is an original PlayStation game. I think it might have been on the Sega Saturn as well. I'm not entirely sure. But, I played this back in the day as a little kid, and what a game. It was very much yes, this is an early PlayStation game. And yes, we tried to copy some elements of Mario 64. But it was a fun game. It was a platformer with tank controls. like, at the time it played weird. Thankfully, they've gone into the game and actually made the gameplay modern. You can actually play it as a modern, 3D platformer now, which is great. You can play it as the old style if you want. The game's also got like a dozen graphical modes. So if you want to play with the old levels but with the new character models, you can do that. You can play with the old character models just with a higher polygon count, or play as like the new version, which is basically a borderline remake. And I love that. Logan, did you get to play this back in the day at all?
I actually did not play the original one, but I had the one on Game Boy Color. and I
Oh yeah.
really enjoyed it. So, and speaking of which, someone brought that game up and the sequel, the Croc 2, and they said if this Croc remaster does well, that they'll circle back to those. So, once again, if you guys like these type of games and want to see them keep coming back, go out there, support them. They are ready and willing to supply more content to happy customers.
Yeah. I think we've seen these collections pop up all the time. So we had the Metal Gear collection last year, Tomb Raider early this year. There's another Tomb Raider collection coming out in February. The Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remaster comes out in December. I love the fact that all these old games are coming back, and
Amen.
there clearly is a market for them. There really is. Like I don't have my but 90% of my original PlayStation games anymore, or a lot of my N64 games. And plus, do you know how much of an arse on it is to change out the battery in an N64 cartridge? Right? I don't know how to solder. I don't want to try. I'll burn my hands off. But with these coming out, don't have to do any of that. Bit of a tangent. I know I sent Logan the link, but Analog, the hardware manufacturer, they're coming out with a brand new N64, which upscales
It's a
all.
beauty.
Yeah, it's a beautiful machine. It upscales all of your N64 games to native 4K somehow using whatever graphical wizardry. It also has a redesigned controller, which is a lot like a 360 controller, but with one analog stick. So tempted. I love the N64. But yeah, Croc, it's coming back, and I think it will do well enough for more Croc games and their other past games to come back, because if you go back to a lot of these games that are coming out, some developers don't exist anymore, right? So rights got passed off to different studios, different people own them. Embracer owns a bunch of random IP, and we may never see the light of day of some of these games ever again. And for Croc to, I never thought Croc would come back, and I loved Croc as a kid. But yeah, it's coming. No date specified, but they did say coming soon and hitting it this year. So hey, more games for everyone. We were gonna save the games industry stuff for a little bit. You know what? Screw it. Let's talk about it now. Actually, before we get into that, Logan, you wanted to talk about the Octopath developers' new game.
Oh yes. Last night I got updated that it looked like there is going to be a Xbox port of a game that I hadn't heard of, but I'm excited for. It's called I'm probably gonna butcher this name, and if I do, I apologize. But Amadama, Amedama, and it is a side-scrolling, soul-shifting sandbox action and adventure game. And it is made by the same studio who did Octopath Traveler. So I'm very excited. Obviously, I love those games. This sounds like a completely different genre and style from that, but they're clearly talented. And the fact that they see Xbox as worthwhile to make a game version for now, to where they've added an Xbox version, that's really good news. Like, even if this isn't your genre, it's good news that they see it as worthwhile, and that the support people have been putting into JRPGs and other content on the platform hasn't just been lip service. Clearly, they're seeing good numbers, and they're bringing more games, and I was just really happy about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly a market for this stuff because as much as people like to hate on it, like the Pixel remasters alone did really well on Xbox. So, and there was no physical version. There was next to no marketing outside of the Xbox YouTube channel and the Twitter account. So, yeah, I think more will come. We obviously know there's some big ones coming next year. Good stuff. You know what? Before we get into the really meaty topic I want to get into, because we've got a bunch of big topics today. Metal Slug Tactics was just announced for Xbox Game Pass. And I think one of the beauties of Game Pass is that, there's people that play all sorts of genres. They may stick to one or two, and they're afraid of touching other things, because games can be expensive. It's an expensive hobby at the end of the day. And if you have Game Pass, you don't really have that barrier anymore. And I think, a tactical game like, Metal Slug Tactics, I think a lot of people will discover that they might actually like those types of games. It's one of the reasons why, like, people might call me a Game Pass shill, whatever. But the amount of people that have told me over the past few years that, like, they've gotten into different genres because of Game Pass, like, that's great. Like, I want more RTS games to come to Game Pass and, Xbox in general. And a lot of people have told me that they've gotten into RTS games because of Game Pass. They didn't have to buy the game up front, and now they're fans of the genre, which is great by my standard. You know what? Let's get into some meat now, because I've been wanting to talk about this all day. That's why I was itching to start the show live. So,
Is it Andromeda?
you know what? Depending on how the show goes, I may dedicate the end of this podcast to just ranting about Mass Effect Andromeda, because we do have a Mass Effect topic, which I'm very happy to talk about, but we have a bunch of different stuff to talk about before then. You know what? So today, Sony laid off Firewalk Studios in Neon Koi, and I think the Firewalk Studios developer we all saw coming. Over the past few years, there's been a lot of developers from all over the world, pretty much everywhere. The studio's been shut down constantly. Embracer alone have shut down more studios than Microsoft and Sony combined, which is horrific if you think about it. 2024 has been an absolute brutal year for the game development community, and it looks like it's not slowing down anytime soon, and we're going to be hearing about more over the next few months, believe me when I say that, which is sad because Christmas is kind of soon. And, like, Concord for Sony, and people don't like to hear this, but Concord is technically the biggest flop of all time. Right? Atari's been number one. Sorry, not Atari. ET on the Atari 2600. That's been number one for, 40 years? Or something like that. And
Since the landfill days, yeah.
Yeah, and, like, for people that don't know, like, ET was such a huge movie that Atari were, like, really needing a game out. So they rushed this, like, one developer and made this game in 6 weeks. Now, I don't know how to code. I could not make a game as good as ET. I just can't, right? I don't know a single line of coding at all. I'm not going to pretend to. But the fact that they made that in 6 weeks and they put it out, is a testament to, like, the effort, right? However, the reason why it was a big flop is because Atari printed more cartridges than there were consoles. They thought it was going to be such a huge success that it would, like, this was before N64. This was before, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Xbox, GameCube. This was before game consoles were selling 20 million units, right? So, like, Atari honestly believed that E.T. the video game, months after the movie came out, would propel the Atari 2600 through the bloody stratosphere, right? And, again, E.T.'s not a good game. Even by the Atari standards, it wasn't a good game. And nobody was buying it. It was at a time where shovelware was coming out constantly, over and over and over again. And it got to a point where gamers basically stopped trusting these companies, there was so many, like, clones put out of games. The quality of the games were just bad, even by that time. And then basically it got to the point where there was a game industry crash because of, not just because of AT, but the whole situation, the game quality, the whole landfill thing, because they printed so many cartridges. So, like, mainly in the US, there was, like, a huge game crash, while over here, We still had things like the Amstrad, the Commodore 64, basically small compact PC game and stuff. Uh, but like the Western American, game crash basically affected everything. Nintendo brought them back from the brink, and that look where we are now. But Concord financially is technically a bigger failure, and it's going to have a knock-on effect with the rest of the industry because you have EA, you have Activision, you have Ubisoft, you have Embracer now getting into this stuff where they are wanting these money pumping games that are just like basically printing money all the time. They want everything to be a Fortnite. They want to be able to sell skins, battle passes, microtransactions of these games they can just build off on for years. Because look at Epic, right? They provide a great game engine, but they aren't making games. They're just making more Fortnite content. And a lot of these developers want that game. Look at Overwatch. Did Overwatch 2 need to exist? Let's be honest, it didn't. They just needed to put out more content for the first game. And, the main selling point for the sequel was a campaign which they cancelled. they had a perfectly good money-making game right there. And they messed it up. Like, the industry, these publishers, they're so money-hungry that they are making their developers make these games, not just Concord, but make these games where, look, if it isn't Call of Duty, Halo, or Battlefield, and even Battlefield's on thin ice, like, none of these games are making money. They just aren't. I've been saying for the past year and a half, before we talk about the whole future game crash thing, Logan, what's your take on today's studio's closure? Because it's actually big news.
Yeah, it's huge news. Like, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, you never want to take a victory lap about people losing their jobs or a studio getting shut down and affecting livelihoods and stuff like that. Like, it does have a real human cost, and these people are going to get displaced and have to figure out new things and try to get careers going again and do stuff. So there is human sympathy there. At the same time, though, I do feel like it is also a positive sign in other regards that clearly feedback and people not playing it and voting with their wallet and voting with their voices online and by playing or not playing and like reviewing the game or discussing it online with content and all that stuff clearly had an impact, and it is gone. In 2 weeks it was snuffed out of existence like Thanos snap, and Firewalk went from Firewalk to Studio Walking, and then they were gone. They and the other studio were taken out back, and now it is interesting how side tangent, but how certain voices in the industry are not talking about this in the same light as certain other you know headsman block things happening to studios and other stuff like that, and content like y'all know what's happening, y'all know what's going on. You're not, you don't it's obvious, but that's happening, and it's really interesting. And like someone brought it up, the point that was really interesting is like, so let me get this straight. You had two Sony execs get promoted, and they approve a $200 million project that's doomed to fail. One of them suddenly, quote, retires, and then the other gets promoted to his job, and then completely axes the studios and the teams and people who worked on the said approved failure. Like, how does that work? Like, on what planet did they think um, Overwatch at home was going to work out 8 years later? It just, it had some of the least inspiring character design I had ever seen in a game, and it just felt like carbon paste game. It was just not fun. So, it sucks for the people who got let go, and obviously they have to find new stuff. I hope they land on their feet, but I I do think it does have positives that people are fed up and have had enough and quit forcing nonsense like this out there.
Yeah. You know, um, since YouTube is a bit slow today, if people are enjoying the show, please share it out. It is appreciated and does help with the algorithm, with the likes and all that stuff. Anyway, uh, so Jeff Keighley, I'll say it. Jeff Keighley today put out this exact tweet. Firewalk Studio, the team behind Concord, is being shut down. And then he quote tweeted the Firewalk Studios official post. Seems pretty normal, But people are pointing out that he didn't even mention the words Sony or PlayStation in his tweet. But if you look at the Xbox closures, this is how it was worded. Xbox today announced internally that it is closing 4 Bethesda studios, 3 years after acquiring the company. Here we go. Arcane Austin, Tango Gameworks, creators of TGA winner Hi-Fi Rush, Alpha Dog, and Roundhouse Studios, and then a big picture of the Xbox logo. It's a bit obvious, isn't it? Let's be honest, right? Like, I know, I know Jeff Keighley gets a lot of flack online for favoring one platform over the other, even though in his position he should really not, especially with the Game Awards around the corner. But I don't like to say people are biased, but I'll say he's biased. He's definitely biased. Like,
A duck's a duck.
yeah, and like everything he does say and do comes off as a bit of like Sony shill type thing. And this is not new. It's been going on for years, but I just think it's a bit weird how like he wouldn't even like look at all the replies to that tweet. Like, who's shutting Firewalk down? Like, we can all see it, But with that aside, I think the game industry is in a weird place, Was it last year, around about this time last year, like 6 medium-sized, multiplayer indie games were shut down, and those were never going to make much money because, like, if you aren't one of the big dogs, like, you aren't really going to make money, right? You have, I'd say, smaller, party-style games like, Rocket League, huge success, things like Fall Guys, stuff like that. And, like, there's not much wriggle room for anyone else. In the AAA space, if you, online live service shared world game, you're either going for Destiny or The Division. You weren't going for the Avengers or Anthem. And believe me when I say it still pains me about Anthem. Like, all these years later, there's so much raw potential and nothing. That game's still live, by the way. People can play it. It's just there's not much content there. But like these live studios, live service studio things, like, it's tiring. We hear about these new games, they get hyped up, and there's investments made, there's marketing, all this stuff, and the game comes out, there's no interest, and then everyone just go like, look at X Defiant, right? X Defiant is reportedly going to shut down after season 4, right? This was the game the Call of Duty fan base was calling the COD killer, right? The COD killer. And here we are now with Black Ops, which again we'll talk about in a bit. But like, X Defiant didn't stand a chance. One, no campaign. I don't care who you ask. People that even stick to the multiplayer, they see value in that campaign, right? And believe me, they made a good campaign this year. But people see value in that. The variety of modes, the even like skins, like the different skins you can get in Call of Duty. They have Warzone. They have Warzone Resurgence now. And X Defiant was just this PvP COD clone that didn't play as good, didn't look as good, and they try to shoehorn elements of other, Ubisoft franchises in there. So basically, instead of operators, you have classes which are reminiscent of different Ubisoft IP. And it really made me angry because I'm running around in X-Defiant dressed up as someone that should be in a Splinter Cell game. How dare they? Like, how dare they do that to my feelings, right? You know, I think the AAA industry, it's in a weird place at the minute. We see these success stories once every so often. Last year I'd say Baldur's Gate was the big AAA success story. Hogwarts Legacy as well. In fact, Hogwarts Legacy was the best-selling game of 2023. This year, Dragon's Dogma, huge game this year. And, there's some other games coming out soon. I'm sure it'll be big. But, I don't know. I think that, I'm trying to dance around certain words. But, like, the AAA space is just toxic at the minute. Not just, like, people, the way they're covering them, the games at the minute. Like, how often does a game get announced and showed off right now in 2024 and there's no controversy around it? Like, it's very rare for that.
There are a few, not AAA games. It feels like indies are spared, but AAA is like,
yeah, it's weird, man. And all these companies chasing live service games. I don't know who they're making these games for, right? Is a Call of Duty fan really going to move away from Call of Duty? No, they're not. Is a Destiny fan going to move away from Destiny? No. They might move to, mobile Destiny for 5 minutes and then they realize they prefer playing on a PC or a console. Battlefield, I could, as a Battlefield fan, I could make fun of that franchise all day. They ruined themselves. If you want to play Halo, you play Halo. But I just don't know why these companies are constantly... Honestly, I think multiplayer was in a better place before Fortnite existed. Right?
Yes.
Because...
Look, I will go down on that ship as well.
Because, look, I think Fortnite is a perfectly fine game. And what they've been able to do with that, especially with the live performances they do every so often, like, it's really impressive stuff. But, like, what Fortnite did to the game industry, I think, is irreparable, right? Because before then, we didn't really have battle passes in video games. The multiplayer space was basically, hey, you buy the game, and you play it, and hey, you can buy these maps, or you can get these skins. That's essentially what it was. But, like, for some reason, ever since Fortnite came out, all these other developers, they're chasing what Fortnite is. Like, look at Assassin's Creed, right? Apparently, after the next Assassin's Creed game, so the one that's meant to be in, like, Western Europe, like, apparently after that one, Ubisoft are wanting to move to this model where they have what I think was going to be called Assassin's Creed Infinite, where they have constant expansions into different Assassin's Creed timelines and different stories. And that just screams to me like they want Fortnite money. Like, so many companies want this, like, Fortnite money. And I tell you, every single one of them, they're going to fall flat on their face and fail. Because Fortnite is its own thing that will never be replicated. But everyone chasing this at the minute is just stupid, right? Every so often we get these brand new, like, single player games announced, and people are championing that, hey, this is a single player game. There's no, like, remember Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order and its sequel? Like, people are saying, oh yeah, it's a single player game without microtransactions. That was a big marketing thing for that game. The fact that you weren't being diddled out of money, and I don't know, man. I see those studio closures today and what's going on with the rest of the industry. Like, I really do think there's going to be some sort of game crash. It won't be on the level of, what happened in the 80s, but, like, AAA gaming, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like, as of right now, 2025 is looking like it's going to be an amazing year, right? An amazing year for games. Not just for exclusives, but, just games in general. You have Grand Theft Auto, and there's, like, dozens of other great games coming out. But I think, like, towards the end of this generation, like I think it's going to slow down when it comes to AAA releases, because these games are costing way too much money. And people do the whole panicking thing online when it comes to multi-platform stuff, right? We've seen this all year. Do you know what's funny about these multi-platform announcements? If you go back to January, Xbox fans were like losing their minds. Xbox content creators were kind of losing their minds and like panicking because of those 4 multi-platform games, right? Do you know what happened when Sony announced that Lego Horizon was going to the Switch? Nothing. No panicking. Nobody going offline for good. No like panicking in the community. People just moved on with the rest of the day, pretending that nothing happened. And like with the whole like games costing more than ever, like we are going to see not just games going to other platforms, but you have these companies embracing mobile, right? Assassin's Creed Mirage is now on iOS devices, and I'm pretty sure that they're going to try and get Assassin's Creed Shadows on mobile devices. There's other games Ubisoft is looking at, by the way, on putting on mobile devices, which some of which should be announced in the next month and a half, which will be a big deal, and which will also be on the Switch and Xbox as well. But story for another day. Like we've seen all these companies embrace mobile because that's where the money's at. And I think, you have these new generation of gamers where the concept of them buying a console or buying video games is kind of alien because they've grown up with Fortnite, right? And that sounds weird, right? Hey, I was a kid, I grew up on Fortnite. By the way, that sounds scary and horrifying in the same time. like imagine
that is cool.
Imagine being the game you grew up with as a kid. Not Mario, not Sonic, not Crash Bandicoot, Fortnite. I'd rather off myself. But
Can I throw out a thermonuclear like comparison for Fortnite that just dawned on me?
Yeah.
Okay, this might sound wild, but I'll just go there. But to me, Fortnite is like invasive species that got introduced into an environment that it wasn't meant to be in. And then it somehow invaded and spread like wildfire, and it completely ensnared and entangled and completely changed the environment. And it just, for better or worse, everything was completely different after it was brought in to a place it just it vastly altered like the ecosystem of gaming and everything, and just I don't think for the better, in my opinion. I know a lot of people like it. I'm glad and I'm happy for people who like it, but I just I feel like pre Fortnite and post Fortnite, I prefer pre Fortnite.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. For people that are listening that do, I know a bunch of people that like Fortnite. I think Fortnite is a great game, right? Don't get me wrong. It's just what its business model did to the industry. I could cry, you know. I just think that going forward, developers are going to have to start being way more careful. Like the budgets of these games, they shouldn't be $400 million. They shouldn't be 200. Like Concord, apparently, we've heard multiple different rumors, and it came out today that it cost $200 million. That's not including the help from other studios and the purchasing of the studio themselves. So like it could realistically be $400 million, but games shouldn't cost that much, right? The Witcher 4 is projected to cost $400 million. That game has to be a smash hit the second it launches. And remember, The Witcher 3, that launched buggy as hell, right? It launched with a ton of issues, and now I can safely say The Witcher 3 is one of the best games ever made. It's truly deserving of that name, but I just think developers need to scale it back. Like I just saw in the chat, like again, we're hopping back in the time machine back to the 7th generation. Like, a AAA game costs like $30 million, right? I think Mass Effect 3 cost $40 million, around there. And that game had and bear in mind, Mass Effect 3 gets a lot of flack as being a short shooter. Mass Effect 3 is technically the longest one of the trilogy. There's the most content, the most dialogue, and technically the most missions. But we can, save that for another day. But like Mass Effect 3, big game, it also had multiplayer, and you had the massive voice cast, the insane marketing push for Mass Effect 3. Again, $40 million. I say this time and time again. I think people need to scale back what they want for visuals when it comes to these games. And like, look at Focus Entertainment, right? They put out a few games that I'd say are very graphically intensive and impressive, such as Space Marine 2. Space Marine 2, I think, is one of the best looking games of the year. But does really everything need to look like that? Like, because honestly, if Mass Effect 4, which we'll talk about in a minute, like, if that gets shown off tomorrow and it looks no better than Mass Effect 3, it wouldn't really bother me. I think people's standards are too high at the minute for console, because if you're on PC, like, these developers have all this extra stuff you can turn on. I remember seeing Borderlands 2 on PC on YouTube footage with all the settings cranked up, right? With all the fluid system and all that stuff, right? Like, Borderlands 2 on PC looked incredible. But do we really need that for everything? And people want at the minute, like, look, next time anyone sees me post gameplay footage and just I say something like 60 FPS or 4K, either or, right? You'll notice there'll be people saying, hey, this may be 60 FPS, but I want 4K as well. And vice versa, right? People want 4K. They want 60. They want ray tracing. They want all on a $500 console as well. They want ray tracing. They want realistic graphics, right? On these consoles, like, consoles were never built for that, right? Yes, we have 4K and all that stuff. Yes, there's 120 frames per second games, even on the Series S. But like, people are just wanting too much for everything. And like when Hellblade 2 came out, multiple people asked me, "Will we ever get a game on the scale of GTA with graphics like this?" And I laughed. Like, can you imagine how much that game would cost? Like, and how long it would take to make?
Star.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the price of that game. But my point is, I think people just are asking for too much for everything. Like, look at Jedi Survivor, right? I think Jedi Survivor is a beautiful game, but the amount of people I saw say it was, janky, based off, a certain like animation, it's like we want too much. Like back in the 7th generation, we were getting good graphics for games at the time. Developers weren't trying to make photorealistic graphics. Game budgets weren't inflated beyond hell, and there was no issues. And I don't remember people calling games janky back then. I don't remember people having an issue with certain things in games back then, but now it is an issue. We just want too much, and I just feel like we need to, step that back a bit, because, like, look, I think the game crash is going to happen. And I would happily eat my words, right? I'll happily eat my words if the game crash never happens. But I think it will happen. I think by March 2026, I think there will be some sort of game crash. Small or big, I don't care. I think it'll happen. But, yeah. And also, the price of games doesn't help, right? You have developers putting out $70 games that are relatively short, whereas people now more than ever look at hours per dollar. I don't know. I think developers are walking a fine line, and they have to be more careful. Thankfully, in the UK, I know it's happening sometimes in the US. Like, some developers are being more loose with their prices, so not everything is £70. There's new games coming out at $59.99, $49.99, and I think if they keep doing that, they should be okay. But just please, if any developers or publishers listen to this, stop with the live service crap, right? We're going to have one major hit every few years, and that's it, right? I think the first Descendant was lightning in a bottle, right? It came out at the right time. You have Destiny having less content because they're winding all that stuff down. So, like, the first Descendant basically had, it was literally lightning in a bottle, And plus, people tend to like their character designs. So, all that stuff was working out for them. I just say that,
Waifus with guns and mechs, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
waifus
it
with guns and
sells.
mechs. That is essentially what that game is, but they having huge success with it. Korean studios, they clearly know what they're doing. But yeah, the game industry is messed, and I just hope things get better because I love video games. I don't want it to go away, but just things happen all the time, and it blows my mind. Anyway, we'll move on. We still have like a bunch of other topics to cover. You know what? Let's talk about Mass Effect 4. So, we got some news yesterday. And this, let me tell you, for people that don't know, you know how you have people online that are constantly fake concerning over things like Game Pass? They're concerning over stuff like that. Yeah, like, that stuff shouldn't bother people. That stuff doesn't bother me. Do you know what does bother me? In the back of my mind, it might even keep me up at night. Not really, but yes, it does. The next Mass Effect. Nothing scares me more than that game. Because that game has to come out and has to be perfect, right? That game, I'm not talking about game scores. That game has to live up. This is Half-Life 4 for me, right? This is GTA 6 for me, right? This game has to come out and be everything to a T to what I want the next Mass Effect game to be. Am I being selfish? Yes. But I need that game to be perfect, right? And like, I try not to think about Mass Effect, even though I actively cover it, right? And yes, I'm obsessed with that trilogy. Notice that I keep saying trilogy. Well, anyway, Dragon Age, bunch of previews and reviews just dropped. It's reviewing really well. And Mike Gamble from over BioWare basically just put out a random post saying that the next Mass Effect will retain its mature theme. Now, I thought that post was kind of out of nowhere because nobody was asking about Mass Effect. It's there. Mass Effect is being worked on at the minute, although all hands on deck have been on for, Dragon Age the Veilguard. That took some weight off my shoulders. like I literally felt like Atlas pushing that massive stone up the mountain, right? Like, what's this next Mass Effect game going to be like? Is it going to be a pile of crap? Is it going to live up to my expectations? Obviously, we're not going to know for another 4 or 5 years. Kill me now. It does look like they may be going to, push the game in the right direction. Because everything so far, it sounds good, They've moved back to Unreal Engine, so it actually has tools. They actually moving back to a hub world game setting, so no open world. It's going to be built like the Mass Effect trilogy. And one of the most important things that Mike Gamble said yesterday is that the game's going to have similar themes to the trilogy. Now, he specified trilogy, which gave me goosebumps because notice I never talk about Andromeda. I don't want any of that Andromeda in my Mass Effect 4. I don't. Depending on how long this podcast goes on for, I may save the ending for just the absolute Mass Effect rant, which I've been needing to get off my chest for years. But so far, everything about Mass Effect 4 is sounding good. Again, I haven't played Dragon Age yet. I'm looking forward to it. It's a level-based RPG, which I think we need more of. So I'm really looking forward to it. Logan, what's your take on the Mass Effect thing? Because N7 Day is just around the corner, and while I do think we're just going to get a small 20-second CGI trailer, everything so far sounds good.
Yeah, that was music to my ears. Like what he said, that they're going back to the traditional tone and the hub world design. and the themes and Unreal Engine. Basically, it's like the great band getting back together, and they've got the right mixture again. They're inspired for content that will flow like their old stuff but be new as well. And I just can't wait for it. I'm super excited like you. I'm not quite the herald of Mass Effect like you are, but I really really do like it as well. And I'm really looking forward to it, and especially with I'll dance around this, but I um I especially like the dark and the grittier tone that they're heading for and stuff. Like, I haven't played the new Mass Effect. I wasn't, or not Mass Effect, Dragon Age. I wasn't in previews or anything, so I don't know for sure what it's going to be like. But the stuff I've seen, I haven't been the biggest fan of. I really like the darker, grittier kind of vibes, like more Game of Thrones witchery vibes of the older ones, instead of like kind of the tone and style they're going with this one. I'll pick it up down the line because I love BioWare and their work, and I'll give it a shot, and hopefully I love it. But hearing this was good news during a period of a bunch of negativity.
Yeah, the tone thing was really important because, like, and I see what you mean with like Dragon Age, like its tone, because like Dragon Age Origins is gritty, right? That is a lived-in world. They are at war with the Darkspawn, and like literally, you can't go 5 seconds in that game without being covered in blood, right?
Oh,
Um,
and the whole town is wiped off the map
yeah,
after a few missions.
yeah, like it's a very bleak game, and Dragon Age 2, very bleak game, especially how that game starts off. I won't spoil it for people that haven't played it, but very bleak. And Dragon Age Inquisition, colorful. The hinterlands area. What were they thinking with that gameplay design?
Stupid goats, man.
Yeah. Oh, for people that haven't played, there's a section of the game where you have to like herd 7 goats into a pen or something, or like find 7 goats in the wildlands. Like, oh my god! In an RPG, what were they thinking? Like, no. In fact, there's a quest.
It was Goat Simulator before it was cool.
Oh, it's so annoying. And there's a quest in The Witcher 3, and I'm pretty sure they were making fun of that, where literally you're looking for someone's lost goat, and you walk about 20 feet into the woods, and then you find it. That's it, right? But horrible game design. But with this new one, it's like super colorful. There's lots of bright greens, purples, and all that stuff, and it doesn't have that lived-in gritty vibe that the first 2 games did. But I still think it's going to be a perfectly fine game. I want BioWare to have the biggest of success because, again, I need my Mass Effect. It's just that this is another game wrapped up in air quote controversy. Which I think is a bit unnecessary. Every game has to have this now, apparently. But yeah, everything we're hearing so far about Mass Effect 4, and even though it might be years away, is sounding pretty good. And again, if you're listening live, I'm probably going to pop off in about 30 minutes about Mass Effect Andromeda because I think I've just had this blood boiling, like blood boiling rage of what that game stirred up for years. Because like on Twitter, by the way, you may know I don't actually crap on games, right? I like if people are enjoying the game and I don't like it, I just step back and I think, have at it, have fun, good on you. But the disappointment I had with that game after I finished it was so immeasurable to the point where I could just be walking down the street, minding my own business, and then I'll just get angry because this bloody game. And, for people that don't know, like, they cancelled, or well, they announced the hiatus of the Mass Effect franchise on my birthday. Uh, and yes, I'm still salty over that. Like, years later, like, just imagine that I'm out with my friends on my birthday, and I look at my phone and a bunch of people were atting us this story about, oh yeah, Mass Effect as a franchise is going into hiatus. And I nearly choked on my drink. Like, what? Like, what's this? Thankfully, I was in a pub, so I could already get drunk. But again, we might talk about that in a bit. But hey, Mass Effect 4, I just hope that they keep to the trilogy, And, it's in their best interest, because then they'll have me, selling it to people online for another 2 decades. I mean, that's a win-win scenario right there. Anyway, we'll move on. You know what? We're about an hour into the show. If you're enjoying it, please hit like, share, and subscribe. I hate doing these little ads, but it helps the channel grow. Just hit 5,000 subscribers, so thank you for everyone that just subscribes. Got a bunch of new content coming soon, some interesting stuff coming in the new year, and also on-camera content finally coming. And also the podcast will slightly change format on my end. Again, on-camera stuff. And if you want to support the channel with super chats, want anything answered, all that stuff is greatly appreciated, and all that stuff goes back into the channel. You know what? We still have a bunch of big topics to talk about. Screw it. Let's talk about Black Ops. So, Black Ops. Now, I couldn't be happier with Black Ops because I'm a campaign guy, right? I'm one of the 2% of people, that solely buys a Call of Duty game for its campaign. Is that silly? Who knows? Maybe it is. So for me, and I'm maybe about 5 missions into the game, and I won't go into any spoilers, this game has delivered everything I've wanted and more from a Call of Duty campaign. Because Call of Duty last year, let's be honest, we all knew it was going to be an expansion. So it's a very short campaign, and like Logan, you played Modern Warfare 3, right?
I actually haven't gotten to that one yet, but I know it's a glorified, expansion DLC they stretched out for a year to get out and get the rent paid, basically.
Yeah. So, when you finish finish the campaign in Call of Duty, you can unlock, the ability to play whatever mission you want in whatever order. Well, there's certain chapters in Modern Warfare 3 where, I'm not even kidding, you walk from like one building to the next, talk to someone, and that's classed as a chapter. Right? It is so short. There's some really cool missions in 3, but it's so short. Like, if that was priced at a $30 expansion, I think people would have been really lenient on it and gave it a higher score. But the fact it was a full price game, as a full price, campaign, and it was disappointing. I'm happy to say Black Ops 6, that's not a problem. In fact, I'm about 5 missions in, and I think this game is already longer than Modern Warfare 3. Which is crazy to think about. So again, not going to go into story spoilers, but this game has so many new gameplay mechanics, which I never thought we would actually see in a Call of Duty game. So in between each mission, you go to the safe house. The safe house is filled with a variety of different puzzles, which you want to do, believe me, which unlocks, more backstory to what's going on in the plot, which is really interesting. But just like gameplay mechanics that also help the existing ones. So you can go stealth in some of these missions, and there's also locked doors, which there's a lockpicking minigame, which I love. For some reason, I really like lockpicking minigames. The stealth takedowns are way smoother and faster than previous games. When you go to your safe house in between missions, with money you've picked up, you can actually unlock new abilities and stat changes for your character. So, for instance, when you start the game, you can't use armor plates, but when you upgrade your base, you can actually buy the ability to, maybe use 1 armor plate or 2 or 3. Make it so your character doesn't sway vertically while aiming down sight. Stuff like that. They've really made the campaign bigger than what a Call of Duty campaign has been before, because there's just so much variety in what you can do. And when it comes to the open missions, so far, again, I'm about 5 missions in, there's one open world mission that's called Hunting Season. and you are given 3 main objectives. And you can tackle these 3 objectives in whatever order you want, as long as you get it done. But there's also about 10 different side objectives. And believe me, you want to do all these. And it's just so much fun. Like, the best part about Call of Duty in the past for me has been sniping levels. And you can essentially turn this 10-minute mission into an hour and a half, 2 hours sniping mission. And it's
all gillied up.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You can basically turn this entire mission into that, and it's just so much fun because you can go all action if you want. Do you want to roll in with heavy artillery? You can do that, but I chose to go in with a sniper rifle, go in quietly, and highlight enemies, snipe them from a distance, and it's some of the most fun I've ever had in a Call of Duty game. It has some of the best elements from some of the best Call of Duty campaigns. Honestly, even though I'm 5 missions in, this may end up being the best Call of Duty campaign. Not even kidding. And again, I'm 5 missions in. And apparently it gets way better. So, again, I'm not spoiling it, but there's going to be things in the gameplay that will shock you. There's going to be things that you don't expect because things, change and things, happen throughout the game. But I think if people are really into Call of Duty campaigns, and that's why you play them, so you're like part of the 2% like me, you're really going to love this game. Really. I think that, the voice acting, the graphics, it's top tier. Call of Duty gets memed for coming out every year, but you can't deny their visuals and voice acting, it's just great. Best storytelling in years when it comes to a Call of Duty game. And I know, Logan, you played the previous Black Ops games. Like, they do have interesting stories, right?
Oh, they're among the very best in the FPS genre. Like, bar none. They're very, very, very good campaigns. Like, as far as Call of Duty campaigns, I think the Black Ops series and basically the expanse, but not really the expanse of Infinite Warfare.
Yeah.
Like, I will fight to this day for a sequel to that. That game was so cool. Like, I really want a second one.
Yeah.
Advanced Warfare was fun. The original Modern Warfare trilogy on the 360. I haven't played through the current trilogy of Modern Warfare, so I can't really say that. But yeah, Black Ops is fantastic. I'm with you. I'm in the 2% who plays for the campaign. So I absolutely cannot wait to dive in. I'm waiting until after Halloween to dive in, but I am so excited.
Yeah. I mean, the campaign, I mean, what can I say? I think, when you've played it, so many first-person shooter campaigns in the past, they're pretty much all the same. Go from point A to point B. That's, cutscene at the beginning, cutscene at the end. They've all been the same for decades, but I think with this one, it's got so much variety during the gameplay. Like, you do have the traditional set pieces, like there's footage on screen right now of a helicopter chase. Like, it does have your big budget, Michael Bay-esque action-packed sequences, but like the fact that you can approach stealth your own way. There's a part in the game where, and again, this isn't a spoiler, there's a part in the game where you have to get to a certain, person, and you can decide to go through this building if you want, and all guns blazing, and I think there's about 33 enemies, but you can also stealth it if you want, and I think that that's really good. And also, the enemy AI actually seems competent in this game. Yeah, in the past, they either run towards you when they've got shotguns, or they'll just stay behind cover constantly. But in this, they'll actually try and flank you. There's different kinds of enemies. There's some enemies that actually have health bars, so you can't just one-shot them in the head and then you're done. No, they're wearing, like, full armor. You have to take them out with, like, C4 type thing. And it's just fun, And what can I say? I mean, I know the developers have been making this for a very long time. You can tell it's had the longest development time when it comes to a Call of Duty campaign because, again, the variety. Like, I've never seen an upgrade tree like this in a first-person shooter such as COD. You expect them to go all out with the campaign. The multiplayer and the zombies, which we'll get to in a second. But the campaign alone's great. What can I say? If you're a fan of Black Ops, you're going to love it. If you're a fan of single-player, first-person shooter campaigns, you're going to love it. I will say this, for people that are diving in, you want to get as much money as possible while playing the campaign. So make sure to search all rooms, because you will see safes. And the code for the safes are always on a radio nearby. I found that.
Good advice.
Yeah, I found out that a bit too late because I've missed out on 2 safes, but it is a bit convenient that safes are right next to the code. So, very good game. What can I say? And again, I'm like 5 levels in. Now, multiplayer. For people that don't know, multiplayer isn't really a thing I'm into much anymore. Back in the day, I want to say, I honestly think I was probably top 50 in the entire country. You know, back when Black Ops 1 was out. Like, I was on Call of Duty multiplayer every single day, sweating it out with other people, and I was good. I was damn good. Now, when you have a break from 2011 to this year, it turns out you lose all your skill, right? You know, I've mentioned it before. Like, my aiming went down the crapper, right? It was bad. However, I'm trying to get back into it, and the omnidirectional movement helps me as a player. You know, the fact that you can sprint in any direction sounds weird, but it works, and it just makes for smoother gameplay. In fact, I know for a fact that Infinity Ward apparently don't like the omnidirectional movement, but I think considering how popular it is, they have to keep it. I think going forward, it should be a standard in multiplayer. Whatever they're going to do with jetpacks in the future, I don't know, because again, next year's Call of Duty is apparently a sequel to Black Ops 2. So we're just going to ignore 3 happened, but from what I've been told, that's a good thing.
Yes.
But yeah,
it's Andromeda for Call of Duty.
See, I'm already triggered. It sounds like crap. But yeah, what can I say? The multiplayer, it's fun. Good map design. I like the fact that, you know, unlocking weapon attachments feels more like how it used to be back in the Modern Warfare original days, which I really like. And, oh, by the way, for people that don't know, Nuketown unlocks on November 1st. So even though everyone complains about map variety every year, everyone wants Nuketown. And I guarantee you they're going to have the playlist Nuketown 24/7, because, again, it is essentially the best map, in my opinion.
It's a staple.
Yeah, it's just fun. I mean, you can't go wrong with it. But yeah, the multiplayer is fun. And again, I'm terrible, right? You have people that have been sweating it out for years, flying around the map like a chipmunk. They have to do 360 no-scopes. They're doing slide cancellations, even though there's no reason to. And you're going to encounter those people. It is what it is. But all in all, I think the game's great. Now, let's get into its success, because this game has been huge. I've never seen a marketing push for a Call of Duty campaign like I have with this. Like, it all over the place. You've got Black Ops posters on the side of buses and trains. You have bus stops posters everywhere. You have the Replacer showing up randomly on Sky Sports. You know, like the coverage they've got for Call of Duty, I've never seen like this before. You know, Microsoft hasn't had the marketing for Call of Duty since Call of Duty Advanced Warfare in 2014, right? And you can tell they wanting to go all out, making sure that you know that it's available on Xbox. And it's been a big deal, you know? And this is the first Call of Duty in a long time where there hasn't been a controversy around anything. You know, there's been no controversy about, you know, zombies going open world, which a lot of people weren't happy with back, 2 years ago. A lot of people weren't happy with last year's campaign being so short. And sometimes multiplayer not having enough maps or weapons to start off with, people have had issues with. But this time, people have had no issues with the campaign. The multiplayer people love. Like, hell, even IGN gave the campaign a 9. A 9. IGN. The place that gave Alien Isolation a 5.9. Who would have thought? They also gave the multiplayer...
Speaking of triggered, that will always trigger me.
Yeah, I honestly don't know how people will give that... Like, how do you play Alien Isolation and give it a 5.9? Like, really? Did you play it? Apparently, by the way, apparently he did play Alien Isolation on hard. Like, what are you doing? Like, why would you? Why?
That's psycho behavior.
Yeah, like, oh, I'm gonna play this horror game on hard and then blame the game for being hard. Why? Like, anyway, we could talk about that for like another hour, but this Call of Duty, there's been no like controversy or anything. People have been completely fine with it, which has actually been refreshing because one, that's less whining in my feed, but people seem to be really happy with this game. You also get unlocks, so if you play the campaign to completion, you get stuff for the multiplayer, which I think is a really cool way to incentivize people to play the campaign. And yeah, it's had a huge success. It's one of the best-selling Call of Duties so far, and it's only been out in a few days. Yeah, a few days. And this game launched in Game Pass. People were saying this was going to be the end of Game Pass and all this stuff. I think it was game.industry.biz or whatever you call it. Print media, that'll be gone soon. But people are saying, like, this is going to kill Game Pass because of the lack of sales and stuff. And what do you know? Yes, physical sales are down in the UK compared to last Call of Duty. However, there's more incentive to buy Call of Duty digitally than ever before because of Call of Duty HQ, right? If you have discs for Call of Duty HQ, that's just annoying, right? That's one of the reasons why I'm like digital for Call of Duty going onwards. Have done since Modern Warfare 2. It's just convenient. And plus, the way physical media is dying in the UK, it's been dying a slow, painful death since 2012. Right? That's the reality of the situation. And the fact that game stores in bloody nowhere, hell, my city doesn't even have a video game store. Like, that's crazy. But it's having a huge success online. And bear in mind, digital sales aren't tracked in the UK. In the UK, Call of Duty is number 1 and number 2 in top paid games on Xbox Live. So, like, everyone's playing Call of Duty. Everyone. In fact, the internet provider EE was having issues because of so many people were playing Call of Duty. like, it's a big deal. Like, the huge success is, like, crazy. And, like, it's been plastered all over Game Pass. Game Pass ads have COD in them. COD adverts have Game Pass in them. I just think it goes to show that, yes, people still buy games, and it looks like it isn't going to be the death nail that grifters were, talking about. Logan, what do you think? Because, again, it launched in Game Pass, and it's doing this big already.
Yeah, I know everybody's favorite market enthusiasts at Game Industry Biz were worried about the downfall of society and Game Pass and Call of Duty sales and physical media sales, this, that, anything Xbox related, it somehow gets trumped as the worst thing. And then if Jim Ryan says that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But besides that, like you mentioned the sales, I'm on the Xbox store in the US right now. Literally the top 3 things in the paid section are Call of Duty Black Ops 6, the cross-gen bundle, like that thing they do where you get the Series X,
Yeah.
S, and then the Xbox One version. Number 2 is that $30 Vault Edition upgrade that a lot of people are doing, which is super smart, by the way. That if you have Game Pass and you don't really feel like buying the game completely right now, or you don't think you need to, you can get that, and that basically gives you the $100 edition for $30
Yeah.
with Game Pass. And then number 3 is the $100 edition, the Vault edition. So literally the top 3 things for sale on the Xbox Store in charted paid sales are all Call of Duty 6, Black Ops 6. So it clearly has not been irreparably harmed by Game Pass. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I've just checked. So the Call of Duty Vault Edition, so the 99.99 version, that's number 6 on Xbox Live. For reference, that's $130. So $130, version of Call of Duty is selling more than some of the other latest games. And again, the Vault Edition at 1, Call of Duty cross gen bundle is number 2. Like, it's having a huge success. I think that we finally move away from the whole let's talk about Game Pass, how it's destroying the industry, and let's fearmonger it. 'Cause you do have these podcasts, by the way, and I have heard that all they talk about every week is Game Pass. It's ruining everything. It's the death nail of gaming, all this stuff. Bear in mind, I know for a fact that some people that complain about Game Pass weekly on their podcasts, I know for a fact that they subscribe to Game Pass because they actually see value in it. They just talk about it because
That is a heck of a drug, man.
yeah, like there's a lot of people, believe me when I say that I know for a fact they subscribe to Game Pass and they only hear on it because of their fan base that listens to their show. Anyway, it's good to see Black Ops having huge success because I think after last year's Call of Duty, it needed this. It really did. Last year's campaign, it was hilariously short. Like, that was so short as a campaign. And, like, it had one decent sniper level. It had an AC 130 level, which I did like. But the fact that you just walk to, like, one person and talk in one of the missions, and it kind of does something similar in a different mission, like, very disappointing. Very disappointing. But Black Ops, what can I say? I think Microsoft, they're going to learn from this because, again, the marketing's always been something a lot of Xbox fans have had a really big issue with because Microsoft's marketing for video games tends to be non-existent sometimes.
It's pretty awful.
Yeah, it's kind of awful sometimes, but sometimes their marketing can be really good. I think Halo Infinite's marketing was excellent. In the UK, it was all over the place. But this Call of Duty marketing, like, whoever their team is doing the marketing, they need to start doing other Xbox games. Maybe not maybe not Perfect Dark or something, but like their big 10, screw it, they have to do Perfect Dark as well. Like their big 10-pole games, Fable, Indiana Jones, Doom, the Dark Ages. Like, let people know, because you know what? And it's sad that I have to say this, that there's people in this past week, I've had to explain to them what Game Pass is. Like,
yeah, that's a massive failing.
Yeah, and like it's like the best service, and I'm not just like going fanboy over it, but like, one, the sales, right? The fact that when you subscribe to Game Pass, you have access to sales that not just for games on the game store. Like, there's a Game Pass sales section where like Red Dead Redemption is like £18 all the time on sale, even though the game's not in the service. You have discounts for games that are in the service that are leaving, so you get to keep the game at a decent price. You have the perk system. Like, the amount of free months I've had off Spotify Premium is ridiculous. In fact, I've never had to pay for Spotify Premium because of the amount of times Xbox give that away. In the past, they've gave away codes for Paramount Plus, Apple TV, and all that stuff. And like, it's a good service. And the fact that I've had to tell people that, hey, it's a library of games you have access to, and you also, you're going to have your new Call of Duty, Diablo 4's in there. And they really seem shocked. Like, what do you mean? So you don't have to buy the game up front and have to explain, like, these people that are subscribed to Netflix and Disney Plus, I have to tell them how a subscription service works for video games. Like,
you mean it's not cable?
Yeah, like, it makes no sense. But thankfully, they are getting the word out there. And like, all this money funnels back into Xbox, which is important because, again, we want the studios to grow and stuff. Activision's going to print money regardless. But I think what a lot of people don't realize is that even though Call of Duty is selling really well, it's got Game Pass growing, which is great. But like, Call of Duty is essentially a vessel for microtransactions, right? Every time I fire up Warzone Resurgence, everyone's running around like Homelander, right? Homelander, Rick Grimes for some reason is really popular, but like, everyone's running around with these like £15 skins, £25 skins, and there's people that own lots of skins, and a lot of these people can be referred to as whales because they pay for our gaming basically. But like this new
Shouts to the whales.
yeah, this new Call of Duty is essentially just a vessel, like previous Call of Duty games, and that's fine. That's just how it works now. But for the people that do the doom and glooming daily, weekly, like I don't think they get the big picture. Like Microsoft didn't purchase Activision just so they could put Call of Duty on Game Pass. Like it's a bigger deal than that. Candy Crush, we might meme it as being a mobile game, but Candy Crush prints money, and it's sickening, really. You have these, what do you call them in the US? Soccer moms. Like,
Yes, those soccer moms are single-handedly funding like the GDP of a third of a country.
yeah, like they are the big Candy Crush crowd, and I mean, I don't see any joy in those types of games, but hey, good on them. And there's clearly, a market for it. I think that, people that just say like Microsoft purchased them for Game Pass and Call of Duty, that's like, no. In fact, that's probably the smallest reason why they actually purchased them, Not just even the back catalog stuff, like Activision's games print money. You have Diablo, which is an all-time high right now, especially after the expansion and the success that's having. Like, that is essentially another vessel for microtransactions. Because do you know what happened when they start putting in Warcraft skins in Diablo 4? My feed was filled with people wearing Warcraft skins. Like, and for people that aren't on PC, like me, so World of Warcraft has been around for what, 20 years? This MMO, this subscription-based MMO. They put a new mount in the game the other day. A brand new mount. And it's a dinosaur mount. And they were selling it for $90. And do you know what happened? People were going to like city centers in World of Warcraft because there's a bunch of cities in the game, and everyone was walking around these cities on dinosaur mounts. Now, Logan, did you see that at all?
I haven't seen too much visually of it, but I've seen a few pictures, and I know the story with the $90, and like basically, Fun's fact is like people basically there was such a demand for that and using in-game earned currency from buying certain things and converting it to currency to then buy this and stuff like people were crashing the Warcraft economy over this dinosaur mount for $90, which is hilariously insane. But I mean, power to you, power to the whales. You fund our gaming dreams. But yeah, $90 for that. Phil and Satya, Amy Hood, Tim Stewart, they're like, yeah, give me more of that. Like $90 per pop, and it's not even a whole game. It's a dinosaur mount. Like, yeah, sign me up for that.
Yeah, I'll I'll tell you what. While we're live, Logan, I'll send you a picture of just one town hub that someone took a picture of the mounts in that town. Just your DMs on Twitter. Like this, like £90 for a mount. Like, really think about it. Like, back when Oblivion came out in 2006, that horse mount, I think.
It's Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
That's great.
like I've seen clips where there's literally like maybe like 40 people walking around like city hubs on $90 dinosaur mounts, and like when Oblivion came out in 2006, that horse armor skin I believe was $2.99 in the UK.
Yeah, it was like $2.50 in the US.
Yeah.
And people thought it was some outrageous heist.
Yeah, people were like, thankfully we didn't have the rage bait you have today, but like people were losing their marbles. There's articles people can still see online, like the horse armor, like it's going to be the end of gaming. and now you have £90 dinosaur mounts. You know, like they know what they're doing. And to put this into perspective, and this is also pretty sad. So when when World of Warcraft got the sparkling pony mount, it made more money than StarCraft 2 Wings of Liberty.
Those bronies, man.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, a skin made more money than a whole game sales. And bear in mind, this was at a time where, South Korea was bloody massive into StarCraft 2. Like StarCraft, I'd say 90% of the StarCraft 2 sales probably came from, South Korea. But my God, like, again, these games now have been for a while. They're just vessels for microtransactions. That's all it is at the end of the day. Yes, we're going to have fun with them, but, like, if we ever see, like, someone like Activision or Xbox or whatever, if they try and, like, get into a whole, like, game crash thing, I think these types of things are going to stop that on their end because, again, there's just too much money in them. But I just hope now that, we can see that these games, these services, they make money. Like, can we move away and move past the whole, like, hey, let's doom and gloom Xbox constantly. Let's doom and gloom Game Pass. Because Game Pass has been around since 2017. But people act like
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, and people act like it's a new service. And I won't mention names, but recently I've heard a bunch of people say that, Xbox is still trying to find themselves, and, like, are they trying to be like Sony or Microsoft? And, like, I think that is the worst way of thinking about it. Like, we shouldn't want Xbox to be like PlayStation. We shouldn't want them to be like Nintendo. We want them to be like how they are right now. Granted, they do make mistakes, but they have more variety than the competition, and I like that. People argue about Sony having the same game over and over again. Whether that's true or not depends on your taste, but, like, why are people so obsessed with wanting Microsoft to be like Sony? I just don't get that. That's weird to me. Like, Nintendo, they do their own thing. When the Switch 2 is going to be announced, they're going to continue to do their own thing, and nobody's going to complain. But as soon as, like, people just keep wanting Xbox to copy PlayStation, I think that's just weird. Remember Xbox was known as the dude bro shooter box for years, and now they finally passed that, and now we see online, oh yeah, so we should get them to copy like PlayStation. And yeah, Xbox variety. Let's see, first person shooters, third person shooters, third person RPGs, first person RPGs, tactical RPGs, tactical games, RTS games, sim games, racing games, horror games. Let's see what I'm missing out on. Fighting games.
ARPGs, Western RPGs.
Yeah, like the list goes on. Like, Sony at the minute, and it works in their favor a lot of the time, tend to lean towards third-person, over-the-shoulder action-adventure games. They do have their occasional offshoot game like Astro's Playroom, which I can't wait to play that whenever I get a PlayStation 5. It looks really cool. But it's pretty much third-person action-adventure. Third-person action-adventure. And that's where they make their money. I mean, it is what it is. We'll see how things are going to shift on there, and when it comes to, like, multiplayer and all that stuff, considering what happened with Concord. But anyway, I hope we see less concerning over Xbox, because this year has been weird for Microsoft, right? They had this 2024, roadmap, which looked great, albeit it's changed because of, new announcements, delays, and all that stuff. It happens. And, the January stuff, I noticed, like, there's a lot of people I used to talk to in the Xbox community that they've been offline since January. Like, they've just, like, that whole stuff that happened in January with those 4 games, people lost their marbles. Some people just exiled themselves from the community because they probably had too much of it, which I think is a bit of a shame. People leaving, like, the community on, Twitter and all that stuff, which is a shame. Then Microsoft had possibly their best, not the best, game showcase ever in June. Like, to a T, perfect, right? And then the Indiana Jones thing got randomly dropped in, August at the Gamescom thing. and that set them back a bit. And now they have a really big high at the minute because Call of Duty's doing really well. It's in Game Pass. They have Indiana Jones coming out soon, and by the way, all the Indiana Jones previews are really good. And if people haven't checked it out yet, Mr. Boomstick XL's preview on his channel, highly recommend it. Watched it before the show went live. He covered the game. He went to the event. This Indiana Jones game looks super good because, like, some people went into this game thinking, "Oh, it's going to be an Uncharted game," and then when it was announced to be first person, people were kind of took back by it. Like, I never understood that. Like, why do we want all why do we want action adventures to all look the same? Why do we want another Uncharted? Like, it's perfectly fine that it's I like the fact it's a first person game with third person elements. It's something different, It's got a little bit of Deus Ex Human Revolution in there. I think when it comes to originality, we need more of that in gaming. And look, before the game was shown off, did anyone really expect, or many people expect, that it was going to be a first-person action-adventure game? No. Everyone in all my posts constantly talked about it being third-person, just because it's an action-adventure game, But everything about this game is looking good so far. Big levels, robust levels, different. Like, if you've played a Wolfenstein game, it looks like you're going to get that type of setup when it comes to level design, because again, first-person shooter, get from point A to point B, but this has puzzles, alternate paths through tombs and whatnot, city hubs. It looks like it's really impressive. It really does. And we haven't had a modern AAA Indiana Jones game. I think, Troy Baker, from what I've heard, has knocked it out of the park. He sounds exactly like Harrison Ford, which is crazy. And what can I say? I love machine games. I think they've made some excellent games in the past, and if people haven't played the 3 good Wolfenstein games, highly recommend it. Like, Logan, are you looking forward to Indiana Jones, and have you kept up with the previews at all?
Yeah, like the previews have blown me away. I cannot wait for this game. I was already excited. I'm like to the moon now. It looks like it will be the true, fourth film that we always wanted. And even though it's technically set before Last Crusade, but point remains, it's that extra Indiana Jones movie we always wanted. It looks like they've nailed the tone, the combat. Punching Nazis is always fun, and who better than Machine Games to handle that? They certainly have mastered it, and their storytelling and world design is fantastic. You've seen it in the Wolfenstein games. They took a game, like originally a Wolfenstein 3D and stuff like that. They didn't have that big of a story or that much character depth or whatever. It was just some American guy fighting Nazis. And they made it into this crazy, over the top, ridiculous world, retro futuristic, and crazy stories and character depth and development and decisions that matter, and putting all that plus their some of the people come over from Starbreeze who worked on the Chronicles of Riddick games that you love so much, and some Dishonored folks I believe are involved as well. It looks fantastic. I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, everything I've heard about this game looks good. And I have seen a few people talk about how slow it is, and I think that if people go into this thinking it's a Call of Duty campaign, like, that's not what this is. Like it's gonna be more like Wolfenstein: The New Colossus. New Colossus, in between main missions, you were in the submarine. There was secrets on the submarine, puzzles, side activities. Like, this is more like that, but on a bigger scale. You're traveling to different places around the world, going to tombs, solving puzzles. Like, yes, it's going to have first person, combat, such as like guns, whips. You can even throw items such as bottles and whatnot. Again, watch Mr. Broomstick's preview, because he covered it all there. And it's like, this looks like the ideal Indiana Jones game. And if you got burnt out by the last movie like me, I paid to watch that, by the way. Like, the first 25 minutes of that film, by the way, is possibly some of the best Indiana Jones ever put on the big screen. And then it all goes downhill. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull isn't that bad in comparison. I'll put it that way.
Oh,
Like,
oh.
like that might be controversial, but like at least that's fun to watch. That new film, again, outside the first 25 minutes, it's just awful. What were they thinking? But it looks like this is going to make up for that. I think, if you're a fan of the Indiana Jones trilogy, this is going to be for you. I mean, what can I say? And that comes out in December. A few people have asked me, what do I think about the Game of the Year stuff and the PlayStation 5 Pro stuff? I think, the weird thing about the performance stuff is that, it's confirmed that, on Xbox Series X, it's going to be 60 FPS. It's going to be 60 FPS on the Series S as well. Machine Games has always been good with optimization. That's just their thing. Hell, Wolfenstein was 60 FPS on Xbox One, right? They know what they're doing, right? And, when it comes to the whole Pro situation, by the way, there's certain people that reply to all of my posts that go, can't wait for the Pro version, or my Pro is ready. Like, we get what you're doing, by the way. Just stop filling my feed with nonsense, right? We know what you're doing. I think, I've seen a bunch of people triggered by this today. Like, does anyone really care? Because Indiana Jones comes out on the 9th of December, and am I really going to care that someone 5 months later is going to get slightly better visuals that's barely noticeable on a console that costs $200 more extra, and let's add an extra 100 on that if you want to play via a disc? I just don't care. I'm going to be past it at that point, and plus there's going to be an expansion coming out for that. I think it's called Tomb of the Giants or something. But I really don't care about its Pro enhancement. I just don't. Like, I already have a 4K 60 box. I don't need that. I've said it time and time again that I think the Pros this generation, or the mid-gen refresh, is completely not needed at all. And for people that say I'm saying it just because PlayStation is doing one, last time I checked, I don't own a time machine. I've been saying this crap since 2020. Unnecessary, not needed. Maybe if you're new into the ecosystem, I totally get it. Maybe if you have $700 you want to spend on a console, why not? I mean, it's your money to burn. Who cares? But I've never looked at Indiana Jones and the Great Circle and you thought, you know what, that needs to look slightly better on a $200, more expensive console. I think that's a bit forced. These consoles we have now were billed out to us as 4K 60 boxes that can also do ray tracing. Yeah, can't get any more 4K a year. And I've been saying that for 4 years, right? Again, the boxes have 4K 60 on them, ray tracing and all that blah blah blah, right? What more do we want, right? What more do we want? We want better optimization. We don't need to throw. I've spoke to developers about this stuff. They don't like the idea of Pro consoles this time around. Do you know why developers were, or at least a lot of developers were happy last time? It's because you had the Xbox One putting out 720p games a lot of the time, or 900p games, and developers were wanting their games to look good. And now games look good, right? So I don't see the need for it. And even on the PlayStation 5 Pro, you're not getting 4K 60 with ray tracing, right? There are compromises. Look at the Alan Wake 2 stuff. That's going to be 30 frames per second. It's going to look good, but it already does look good. I just think all that stuff at the minute is a bit forced. If you see someone talking about a release, I'm waiting for the Pro version. That's boring. It's boring. Logan, have you got anything else to say on Indiana Jones?
Oh no, except for the Pro thing. Another thing that doesn't bother me is it. It's a Disney property. Lucasfilm. it would be like having a Marvel game and then it goes to other platforms, and then there just so happens to be a slightly enhanced console that uses it. And so they make use of the features just like they promised they would with Call of Duty and their Activision titles, that they would make use of features available and that they wouldn't downgrade and stuff like that. That's just them being good stewards of, hey, we've been given a contract, we're making an Indiana Jones game, we're going to use everything we can. That doesn't bother me at all.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I'm seeing in chat people arguing about resolution and stuff. It's like, do you know how many games this generation have came out at 30 frames per second? Like, with that as the only option, it's less than a handful, right? Like less than a handful. In fact, a bunch of games that came out at 30 are now 60. A Plague Tale Requiem, great game by the way. Like that game's 60 now. I just think that like look at all the tech, and this comes up every time the mid-generation refresh topic comes up. Last time we had what was it 2016 and 17, like 4K TV adoption became pretty popular. 4K Blu-rays became a thing because there's some really good ones out there. 4K content is more viable. Apps start doing 4K, and now what is the reason really to buy? Like, there is no major selling point for a Pro console. Like, if Microsoft came out with a Pro console tomorrow, I don't think there's any use for it. I really don't. Like, think about it. We went from 720p game, like the Xbox One X even has 4K 60 games on it, right? Devil May Cry 5, beautiful game, 4K 60. Red Dead Redemption, not 60 FPS, but it is possibly the best looking game on Xbox One X, 4K native. But this time there's no excitement for it, and the price gouging of $700. Like, of course you're going to be getting a better looking game. Why would you not? It's like why would a PC gamer say, hey, my $2,000 PC, this game looks better than your $500 box? Like, shouldn't that go without saying? Shouldn't it look better by default?
Buddy sure hopes so.
Yeah, like that doesn't make any sense to it. But hey, it is what it is. I just think that it's the whole have not want not type thing. As soon as the Pro was announced, people in my feed were like, "Oh, does Microsoft need something to answer to this?" It's like, no. I've been saying for 4 bloody years, no, nobody do a Pro. Thank you. Hell, we went like last generation. There was big games coming out all the time. This generation, we went 2 years of this generation wanting games to be released. Everything was getting delayed because of the pandemic, and now games are finally coming out regularly. We just need better optimization. That's what it comes down to. And nobody has 8K TVs. Like, I don't know what the prices are in the US, Logan, but 8K TVs over here, unrealistically priced.
Yeah, I would say it is going to be at least several years until that becomes a more readily adopted feature in the US. Like, it took a while for 4K, it's going to take a while for 8K, and yeah, I'm completely with you. Pro consoles are completely unnecessary, unwarranted. These things are undercooked as is. There's still more under the hood they can work with, and I'm just waiting till 2026, likely,
Yeah.
for the next gen consoles and the handheld. Like, sign me up for that. Like, at this point, I'd rather just wait and save my money than get a slightly bumped version and then have to shell out that plus more in just a year or two.
Yeah.
Like, it just financially doesn't seem responsible to me. But again, that's me, and if people want to buy these, power to you. It doesn't seem like they're flying off shelves, so there isn't this strong commanding demand for it. So you should be able to get one if you want one.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I keep bringing up optimization is that there was a game that came out about 2 years ago, excuse me, 2.5 years ago, called Dying Light 2. Dying Light 2 is fantastic, by the way. I think it's on sale if people haven't played it. By the way, the first game is on sale for like $2.99 at the minute. Highly recommend it. But Dying Light 2, that came out with 3 different modes, right? It had 4K mode, it had ray tracing mode, and it had performance mode, right? And all 3 looked perfectly fine, you know? But for a game like that, people kind of leaned towards performance mode. And then about a month after the game launched, they put out a 4th mode called Balanced. And Balanced was 1440p at 60 frames per second. And I switched to that mode, and what do you know? The performance was actually more stable than performance mode. And then you fast forward another month, and Xbox Series X got a random update at some point by the developer, and I believe they increased the resolution to 1800p upscaled to 4K at 60 frames per second, and it looked better and performed better than the performance mode. They were able to squeeze more power out of the box because of optimization. And by the way, they're one of the best developers in the industry when it comes to supporting the games. Like, they support the games with better features over time, enhanced features, not just like gameplay stuff, but like they make their games genuinely better. And I hope like more developers take a page out of their book, because again, they've been really good at it.
Good.
Yeah, very good. And they have a new Dying Light game coming out in like next year. Dying Light the Beast, which is meant to be a 20-hour game. That's probably going to be excellent as well. But yeah, just thought I'd mention the whole optimization thing. You know what? I'm going to rant about Andromeda now because, you know, people are here and I want to finally get this off my chest. So
Talk about those arcs, Jamie.
Oh, God. So, like, we were hyped Andromeda for years, right? Hell, I have an entire playlist on my channel, which people can watch, of, like, Andromeda. Me talking about upcoming features for the game. Me talking about what the story's going to entail. Theories and whatnot, right? Back when my channel was mainly a Mass Effect channel, right? And, you know, I was clearly hyped for it, you know? And the game came, actually no, about a week before the game came out, maybe a month. I read an interview in, I think it was Official Xbox magazine, and I don't think I've ever talked about this before. So I read this interview, and one of the developers was talking about how the Witcher 3 hubs inspired them. Now, this was good to me. I was like, ooh, I love The Witcher 3. It's a masterpiece. And this this article was on about how, you know, in the first Mass Effect game, in 2 and 3, the game basically consists of 3 different hubs, right? So in the first game, you have the Citadel, Novaria, and Pharos. Those are basically the 3 hubs of the game. And this article was on about how, well, in The Witcher 3, each town acts as a hub, and there's dozens of towns in the game. That's not even including cities. So my interest peaked. I was like, wow, they are really going to take Mass Effect to a new level. There's going to be more hubs than this. And then just before release, I asked one of the developers straight up, how many planets are in the game? Because in the first game, I think there were 25 planets. Might be more. I'll have to check again. Because there's so many planets that are basically copy and paste, but with a different color. But, you know, the second Mass Effect game, the third Mass Effect game, there's a bunch of different planets you visit, even though they are just short or longer levels. And one of the developers replied to me saying, a handful. That's when the worrying kicked in. I'm thinking, what do you mean by a handful? What does a handful mean? Right? And this was like, I was getting myself into like, you know, like I was like doubting myself. I'm like, what the hell does a handful mean? Like 5? Is it 5? Like I was panicking, right? The tweets are probably still public, and I was panicking online, thinking, are we really going to go from like dozens of planets? Even though, like, you know, a level set on one planet is perfectly fine. I don't need an open world. But when he said a handful, I started panicking. I was thinking, oh, this is going to be open world stuff. They're going to have, you know, forced, repetitive elements to blot out the world. And then the game came out, and you know what I'm like. I'm marketing the crap out of Mass Effect like, for BioWare basically, and I was so hyped. I was gaslighting myself basically into thinking this is going to be the next, the next sliced bread. It's going to be the biggest thing ever. And then the game came out. I started playing it, and I was posting screenshots on Twitter maybe four times a day. Right, I was so excited about playing this game, but while I was playing it, I'm thinking it doesn't quite feel like Mass Effect, but I'm still enjoying it. And then after playing the multiplayer, which was a huge step back from Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Before I continue, Logan, what was your take on Andromeda?
Oh boy. I man, that I I liked it, some parts of it. Like I really enjoyed some parts of it. Like I guess since we're having open mic therapy on Andromeda, I'll just get it out there. Like I there was a bunch I liked about it, but then there was also a bunch I didn't like. Like I thought like the pink alien guy, I can't remember his name. I guess that's another start is the characters weren't memorable enough for me to remember their names. That's a bad sign for a BioWare game. Um he was interesting. I liked his new race of people and stuff.
Young
And,
Garvins.
yes. And then like I thought the plot was okay, but kind of like a Mass Effect 1 Redux almost. Like artifact, aliens, the aliens are mad, they want to kill everybody, bring about this thing. It's like, alright, it's kind of stereotypical, sci-fi, but alright, I'll roll with it. And then I enjoyed the open world stuff for a bit, but then it got really old and it started feeling like everything was the Hinterlands Redux, basically. And then don't even get me started on the soulless dead fish eyes that the game launched with. That just, pierced into your very being and were just an abomination. And the characters, the companions, they were okay, but not great. They weren't memorable. Like they had romances, but then like they would lock it behind like certain types of choices and stuff instead of making like more people, like they do in later games available to different things. Like they would put them behind certain things, and it was just I don't know. And the gameplay itself, it just wasn't as fun as the original ones. And the whole fact that I'm like, okay, I read all this lore, I'm getting interested, I'm kind of liking it. Like, there's something here. Like, I like the idea of being an explorer, and like, you escape the Reapers by going into this, arc thing, and then you show up, and it's after the events of the Mass Effect trilogy, but you're from before it concluded, so you're kind of this person without a time, and you go around and you do all this stuff, and the exploration was cool. I liked the idea of it, but it felt more like a task instead of like really like inspiring. And for Bioware, that's a problem. And then when you find out that there was all these stories and other things they took out of the game or left on the writing room floor, like arcs that, like there's parts in the game where you have to go find the different arcs and activate them or check on the people that are there or whatever. Like there's whole huge plot threads and things that they just left severed for reasons. And it was completely unfinished, and it was just a bad Mass Effect game. It was if it wasn't Mass Effect, it would be it was a alright fun game. But the fact that it was called Mass Effect and it was what everybody thought a Mass Effect 4 would be, and then it clearly wasn't. It was like Mass Effect at home. It just I don't know. It didn't set well with me, and like you, I was concerned that it basically killed Mass Effect, the brand. But thankfully, we've been given a second chance.
Yeah, I mean, going open world for me was like, and I play a lot of open world games. I mean, look, I've been talking about Fallout 4 for months now. I clearly like open world games, but I think when you have structured levels, it just works better. Especially for Mass Effect because there are areas that are specifically built for side quests in Mass Effect 2 and 3 that you don't revisit and they aren't reused again. And I thought that was just it made these missions feel more unique. You know,
Hmm.
it felt like they actually had purpose. Like in Mass Effect 2, there's a side mission where you're going through warehouses on the Citadel. You never visit that area once again, ever, and I loved that. And for me, bear in mind, like I've not crapped on this game publicly at all. Right? If people want to enjoy it, they can enjoy it. But I think people should allow me to say my feelings about this game because I've hyped Mass Effect as a brand. Let's be honest, like a psychopath, right? I talk about Mass Effect all the time because I want more people to play it, and it's a great experience, the trilogy. And Mass Effect Andromeda, I was so hyped for it, like going to a different galaxy. You jump past what happened in Mass Effect 3 at the end, and so you avoid the story stuff. And like that was a cool idea. That was a good idea actually. Um, but like the characters weren't as good as the trilogy. The fact that we went to a different galaxy and we see one alien race, one, not two.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, it's not two, it's one, and I don't know, like it felt like bloated. And by the way, I have documents about Andromeda that like all these cut features. But even if this game had all of these features like put in, if it launched, like that game was hobbled together with duct tape and chewing gum in 18 months, right? What they put out is actually impressive. If it was labeled as Space Explorer X, right, and it was its own thing, and that was that. I honestly think a lot of people would have like bought it more. I think I wouldn't have had much of an issue with it, but like you had this interesting world such as Mass Effect, and they took a step back from it where it didn't have that. So Mass Effect is basically inspired art-wise by 1970s sci-fi books. So if you're ever in a library, those exist still. If you're ever in a library, look at the art on the covers of 1970s sci-fi books. That's essentially
So
what.
like Ralph McQuarrie
Yeah,
and
that,
yeah,
that
guys,
that's essentially
yeah.
what Mass Effect's art style is based on. But Andromeda, like everything was sleek. It felt too much like Star Trek, and I love Star Trek, but it felt like it was trying too much to be sleek. All the bugs didn't help. The fact that the characters were boring compared to the ones from the trilogy, and like, is it unfair comparing this new game to an entire trilogy of bloody amazing games? That's not fair, But we are humans. We make mistakes, and we're going to be unfair. Like it had like unresolved plot lines. The fact that they had certain Easter eggs that pointed towards certain things, which I won't spoil for people that do want to play it. It just like as a fan, I hyped this game up. I like the post is still public, by the way. Like I put it like this: when I finished Mass Effect in 2007, do you know what I did after the credits rolled? I hit New Game Plus that same night. That same night. Do you know how psychopathic that is? That's crazy that I did that, right? It doesn't make any sense. And do you know what I did? I played through the game again, made the same bloody choices as I always make because that's me. And then when Mass Effect 2 came out, I did the same thing. I literally finished the game, hit New Game Plus. And Mass Effect 3, I actually got back to it a week later because I was busy. But all in all, I got back to those games. Do you know when I realized I didn't like Andromeda? It was a week after I finished it. Like I was gaslighting myself online and in private, saying this game's amazing. I'm gonna love this game. Like I was constantly telling myself this game's great. I'll recommend it to people. And I was just lying to myself because a week after I finished the game, I realized a week had passed and I realized I didn't go back to the multiplayer, and I didn't hit New Game Plus, and that's when I realized that I didn't like the game, right? So like that 55 hours or something I put into the game, that the time I put into the multiplayer, it didn't occur to me that I didn't like the game till about a week after I finished it. You know, and again, I didn't even see any of this online. Not really. Hinted at it, and then about a week later or so, I'm out with my friends on my birthday in this pub, and I literally looked down on my phone. Mass Effect as a franchise goes into hiatus. Mass Effect Andromeda content cancelled. In my heart sunk to my stomach. Like I honestly thought I was going to throw up over a bloody video game. And like I was so disappointed. And like I did the whole port bag thing. Can we get a Mass Effect trilogy remastered? Like I was thought we were done with Mass Effect. And then they announced Legendary Edition, which I already knew about, but they announced Legendary Edition, and then we got a teaser trailer for the next game. Like yeah, I'm obsessed with those games, the trilogy. I'll admit it, right? Have I lost nights of sleep about the franchise? No. Maybe, I don't know. But like that trilogy of games, like there's something so special about them. Like they came out early in the 360 in 2007, where we didn't really have any games like that before. We did have Knights of the Old Republic, but it was its own setting, own unique sci-fi universe, and like that's when the obsession began. And here I am, what, 18 years later or some shit. Like I'm clearly obsessed with that trilogy. Just wanted to have a little rant about it because again, it might explain my psyche more. Like, who knows? People listen to this thing. He's clearly a nutcase. Maybe I am. Jamie projectile vomited onto the pool table. No. Close. I did drink a lot that night though when I went in hiatus. Like really think about that. It was my birthday, and I'm one of those people, by the way. Like on birthdays and Christmases, I like to celebrate. I like to go all out. I'm the kind of person that loves Christmas and, like seeing all the decorations and stuff. So imagine finding out my favorite franchise was ending on my birthday. Oh, I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. It was horrible. It's funny looking back because clearly it's not an issue now. But my God, I was a mess. like when you see these films when someone's going through a rough breakup, that was essentially me. Over like Mass Effect as a franchise because like I was panicking thinking, what am I going to do? No more Mass Effect. I'm going to have like nothing for the rest of my life when it comes to sci-fi like this. Bit drama, I know, but who cares? It's a game. I get it. I just wanted to get it out there. Anyway, I've been talking about Mass Effect for like 30 minutes. Logan, have you got anything else to say before we close out the show?
No, except that I can relate to the Mass Effect thing on a holiday because it ties into sports, but basically like we my team they do free agency in the summers, usually in July. And 4th of July is of course Independence Day in the United States and stuff. And this my team, the Thunder, had Kevin Durant at that point, and we all thought he was coming back. We just assumed he was coming back. It's just like, oh, of course he'll be here. Everybody knows Kevin. He's gonna come back, and it's like, don't even worry about it. And then he surprised everybody by not only leaving but going to the team that had just barely beaten us in the playoffs and was a 73 win team, a historic team already, and for easy championships and stuff. And when you could have done it here, and it was devastating, and it ruined the holiday for me for years. I could not stand the 4th of July. because they had the audacity to announce it on the holiday. Like, why do you have to ruin a national holiday? Come on, man, really? And then eventually the team has recovered. And fast forward to today, the team is probably better than it's ever been. Their future's incredibly bright. We've been given a second chance. Life is great. So I totally understand having a hobby passion thing completely derail on a holiday and you feel like you've just been decked. And then you just get up, you dust yourself off, and you go forward and you get another chance. Thunder have been given another chance. Mass Effect has been given another chance. We will rebuild, Jamie.
Yep. And for people that listen that do like Andromeda, like there are things I do like about Andromeda. I do actually like the Nomad, the vehicle, the land vehicle in that game. I think that I loved that vehicle. I loved the way it controlled. And this sounds weird, but I actually like the font of the Andromeda Initiative in the game itself. Because that game, and it does this issue, a lot of games do this where there's like 8 different fonts on screen at the same time. Like when you're on the menu. Like that really bothers me. Maybe I need therapy or something because like it really annoyed. Maybe it really annoyed the hell out of me.
Let's talk about your font obsession, Jim.
Yeah, like oh god, it'd be like Papyrus with Avatar. I think that like it had a lot of good stuff going for it. I just think it was one of those times where you can tell it was a game that was rushed through development. Like hell, like Anthem had the same issue. They talked about a 10-year plan, and what do you know? The game was hobbled together in 18 months. Same with Andromeda, hobbled together in 18 months, and the fact that they made that game in 18 months, that's impressive. That is a lot of game right there, and it does have some impressive gameplay systems, which I think are really cool. But yeah, don't know why I put the whole Mass Effect rant into this show. Why not? Anyway, Logan, it's been great talking with you once again. And our social links are in the description down below. For Twitter, I am on Blue Sky and Threads. The links aren't in the description. For some reason, I can't get those links to work. But if you want to follow us on there as well, I'm not leaving Twitter. It's just somewhere else to post. Why not? But yeah, have another video coming out soon. Again, thank you for everyone that just recently subscribed. 5,000 subscribers. Took time to get there.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's now on to 10,000. Let's get there. Anyway, we're back for another episode next week, same time. I know that for people listening in the UK, in Europe, the times have been different this week because, daylight savings time is early compared to the US. Like, Logan, when does the clocks go back in the US?
Honestly, I can't even remember. I just always see it pop up on the news and then I do it. It's not something I usually keep track of. I think it is late October or early November. So soon.
Yeah. Okay, I just checked. I think it says here November 3rd is when it changes in the
Okay.
US. So for people in the UK, show goes back to normal time next week. And if you live in the US, no change, which is cool. Anyway, thanks for everyone listening. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties during the show because, again, had some weird connection issues when it comes to Discord and OBS. OBS, it's great software, but if we're being honest, open broadcast software can act up because, it ain't perfect. Anyway, hopefully you should have another video out by the end of the week and hope you all enjoy it. Anyway, hope everyone has a good day. We're out. Before we continue, see it's Richard Elkin's birthday. Happy birthday, dude. Happy 46.
Yeah.
Hope you have a
Happy
good one.
birthday.
Yeah. I wish you said that earlier because we're closing out the show now. It's a bit late. But hope you have a great birthday. Thanks for everyone showing up. And again, new podcast next Tuesday. Everyone, we're out. Peace.